Please understand this. While CDA 230 immunity stands, websites will never err on the side of removing harmful content, even if it's child pornography and even if they know about it. So please stand up and tell Congress to sunset CDA 230 immunity. Thank you.
Protect kids!
Each and every survivor.
We're going to start off with a video, but I would love to welcome to the stage Dani Pinter.
Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order.
We are on the cusp of passing the most groundbreaking legislation of our generation, sunsetting Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996.
Ranking Member Pallone and I recently unveiled bipartisan draft legislation to sunset Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act,
which will allow big tech to finally be held accountable for its harms. Currently, big tech under this law has immunity and cannot be sued or be held liable.
The courtroom's closed to every American abused by all the companies in front of me. Of all the people in America we could give blanket liability protection to, this would be the last group I would pick.
I think the time for all of this immunity is done.
It is now time to repeal Section 230.
It must be repealed. This must stop. Justice must be allowed in the courtroom for survivors to stand up to big tech.
Time's up for big tech. We have waited for 25 years for Congress to hold them accountable, and that is what is happening right now.
Amen.
Well, on the screen here, we have images of parents. They attended a Senate hearing where some of the biggest tech companies' CEOs were present. They're holding images of their children that were lost due to big tech harms. These are foreseeable, known harms that the platforms knew they were inflicting on children, but refused to do anything about. So I want you to think about some other industries for a minute. Imagine if cars had no seatbelts or airbags. Imagine if Tylenol, or even more dangerous medications, had no child-proof caps. We all know that like cherry liquid Tylenol is like candy for kids, right? They're gonna be drawn to drink it. They would be killed, but there's an obvious solution to prevent them from doing so. And that's why Tylenol and all such medications have child safety containers. And we wouldn't shrug off and say, you know what, we don't need safety mechanisms on these products because parents just need to do a better job of monitoring their kids. But this is exactly what we do in the internet context, where a parent's monitoring responsibility is even more difficult to manage. Without litigation, the tobacco industry would still be telling you that their products are safe, and they would still be marketing to kids. Every other industry except the tech industry has to manage litigation and liability risks every single day. And they still thrive or they adapt, and the result is a balance of incentives. A balance of incentives that curbs corporate greed and keeps people safe. Whenever a company launches a new product, they have to consider how would their product harm people, what are the ways it could potentially harm the user, and then they need to develop and enable safety mechanisms to protect the user because that's cheaper than risking liability if they don't. Yet, when it comes to the tech industry, we have a complete reversal of incentives. Currently, no one can sue, and there's virtually no regulations on big tech. Big tech, which is comprised of the largest and most profitable corporations in the world. with profits larger than the GDPs of most countries. Move fast and break things. That's the cutesy little slogan coined by Mark Zuckerberg of Meta. But it seems ominous to me now, because the reason he said that and why he could say that was because of something called CDA 230. CDA 230 is a federal law which effectively immunizes tech companies for any harms occurring on their platforms. Move fast and break things. Sure, why not? You could never be liable for what gets broken, even if what gets broken is your child. No need to slow down and be cautious. No need to stop and examine the wreckage of what they've destroyed along the way. Look, what may have made sense when these were new and emerging technologies, and we actually wanted to incentivize development without caution, makes absolutely no sense now. It is common knowledge that the greatest threats to our society and to our children are not physical harms, but cyber ones. And yet we have an incentive structure which encourages rapid development of dangerous technology with no investment or even consideration for safety. Just like those other industries, the automobile industry, the tobacco industry, big tech is not going to make their platform safe unless they're forced to through litigation or regulation. And let me tell you how bad the problem is. I mean, I don't think I need to, but let's just highlight what it looks like to play out in the law. So as we heard from NCMEC and from several others today, last year, 36 million reports of child sexual abuse material were made to NCMEC. 36 million reports of child sexual abuse in 1 year. To put that in context, a little over 10 years ago, the number of reports was less than 1 million. The sexual abuse of children is not a fringe issue. The demand for child pornography is not small. And the United States market is the primary consumer of child exploitation online. So how did it become so extreme? I argue that this is at least in part due to these broad interpretations of CDA 230 immunity, which have immunized tech companies from liability for sometimes actively engaging that very large market, or at the very least turning a blind eye and profiting from it. For example, when our young client, who is 16 years old, begged Twitter to remove the child sexual abuse material depicting him at age 13, it was created during the product of a sextortion scam, very similar to what John DeMay's son experienced. And this child, our client, was also contemplating suicide due to that. When this child sexual abuse material was all over Twitter and he was begging Twitter to remove it, did Twitter remove it? Or maybe did they just not see his report? No, they saw it. They responded to it. They asked for his ID. They reviewed his ID. They reviewed the material, which was child pornography, and they told him, we've reviewed it, it doesn't violate our terms, and we're not taking it down. And an even more recent example, this happened last week. The NCOSE Law Center, along with co-counsel, sued one of the largest and most profitable pornography websites in the world. It garners even more traffic than Pornhub. And we sued them for the child sexual abuse images of our minor clients that were being distributed on the website. And we also argued that the website encouraged this content and that they facilitated this activity. In one example, by placing the tag toddler on hardcore pornographic content. The court just last week dismissed our lawsuit, finding that this website was immune for that activity. And I want to read you what the court said. Quote, plaintiff alleges, for instance, that the website uses the tag toddler to classify pornographic content on its website. The court found above, however, that defendants' use of classificatory tags are both a neutral tool and the fact that the website suggests to users similar content based on prior viewing is not alone sufficient to show knowing receipt of CSAM, especially if the website function is a neutral tool designed to promote videos. The similar content that the website was suggesting, by the way, were other tags suggested by the website. So someone typed toddler, the website gave results for toddler, and then suggested not 18, cheese pizza, which means child pornography, and middle schooler. This is on a hardcore pornography website. Then, as to our claims of knowing receipt of CSAM, the court had this to say. Here, the court finds, insofar as the plaintiff seeks to hold defendants liable for receipt of illicit videos, these claims are immune from liability under Section 230. Receipt of materials or content is, as it were, simply the first step in any publishing regime. Then mere receipt is not enough to preclude 230 immunity. The illicit materials the court is referring to is child pornography, but the court lacked the courage to say the words as it so casually discarded our client's claims. Please understand this. While CDA 230 immunity stands, websites will never err on the side of removing harmful content, even if it's child pornography and even if they know about it. And courts will continue to find that this lawsuit protects websites for the most heinous activity that they knowingly profit from. So the last point I want to make to you today is this. We are at a crossroads. Do not think for 1 second that maintaining the status quo is not making a choice. Failing to sunset or radically reform CDA 230 immunity, knowing what we know now, is a choice. It is choosing to protect tech companies and the absolute privacy of adults, even to commit heinous crimes, over choosing to protect children from harm. These companies, who by their existence and their nature is profit, will never choose people over that profit. And expecting CEOs tasked with growing these monoliths to steer these massive ships towards safer and less profitable harbors when a fast and smooth current of unimaginable growth and profit is the easier course, is not only unrealistic, it is delusional. The American people have to make a choice. Each one of us must stand up and say, we choose safety and responsibility. We choose our children. We choose transparency and accountability over anonymity. We choose humanity. So please stand up and tell Congress to sunset CDA 230 immunity. Thank you.
Each and every survivor